My guest today is running to be the next mayor of New York City. Zohran Mamdani, thank you so much for doing the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be back.
So Election Day is less than a week away. How are you feeling? What's keeping you guys up at night at this point besides, I guess, everything?
You know, my mom called me this morning. She was like, which poll am I supposed to trust? And I was like, none of them.
No, none.
just canvas. We feel confident, but we also don't want that confidence to become complacency, because every time I get a text from somebody who I went to high school with telling me, look at how good the betting odds are on Kalshi, I'll tell them, look at how good they were for Andrew Cuomo 3 days before the primary. It's an election that you have to win. It's not just going to be given to you.
That's right. And if people want to knock some doors, Zohran for nyc.com/GOTV. Is that right?
That is exactly right. And I would recommend you come out, you knock whatever neighborhood is closest to you. It might even be your own. And if you're not in New York City or you can't make a canvassing shift, you can still phone bank, because the story of how we won the Democratic primary is as much the 1.6 million doors we knocked as it is the 2.1 million phone calls we made.
Here's my pitch. October, November is a beautiful time in New York City to be outside knocking on doors. You will have conversations with voters that surprise the hell out of you, like they didn't know there was an election happening. They don't know the difference between the candidates. You will learn something about politics that you did not know. And also, you probably will do it with a group of people that are young and excited and inspired by a campaign, and not like just talking about Donald Trump. So give it a shot.
We should just have you doing the pitches.
I'm in. I'm sold.
Come on. The only downside I'll tell you is after my mom came back from a canvassing shift, she was like, the 25-year-old I was paired with walked too fast. I was like, okay, you can handle that.
That's a good downside. So, like, bigger picture, President Trump has gone all in to defeat you. He got like Eric Adams to drop out. He's clearing the field. Some of his biggest donors are back in Cuomo. He's overtly threatening to punish the city if you win. What is it like having the full force of the Trump administration coming down on your campaign? And do you think those threats are intimidating voters or make them worry, like, I don't know, if I vote for this guy, is Trump going to send the National Guard into my city?
You know, I think this campaign shows New Yorkers a glimpse of what it would be like in governing, in that Donald Trump is sparing no effort at trying to stop our campaign, right? As you've said, pushed Eric Adams out of this race, has made very clear that Andrew Cuomo is his pick. And it's Donald Trump billionaires who put him back in the White House who have been the ones that are funding Andrew Cuomo's very narrow path back to City Hall. And yet, in spite of all of that, in spite of millions of dollars being spent every single day, we're still seeing an outpouring of support from New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs. And I think it is New Yorkers who refuse to believe that the two choices in politics are either what we are living through right now in the most expensive city in America, or that it could be worse. Politics has to also offer a vision of life that is better than this, and also has to offer the will to deliver on that vision. And that's what is so exciting is, yes, we will continue to have threats from Donald Trump, but we've also seen those threats existed while he had the most collaborative mayor in New York City history to the Donald Trump agenda. He had Eric Adams, who quite literally knew that his personal freedom was a reality in exchange for him assisting with the administration's immigration agenda. And in spite of that coordination, still the Trump administration took $80 million from New York City's bank accounts. Still, they suspended more than $50 million from New York City schools. Still, they look to suspend $18 billion in infrastructure funding. And so we know that the threats, we know that the attempts at intimidation will continue, but I'm confident in our administration and in our city's ability to rebuff them.
Yeah, and we cannot let him dictate elections all over the world or here. I know in this final sprint, you guys are leaving no stone unturned. You're trying to persuade every last voter. In that spirit, have you considered reaching out to the fake Bill de Blasio who did an interview with the Times of London attacking you?
I couldn't believe that. It was, I think he lives on Long Island, right?
So I reached out. I reached out to the fake Bill de Blasio. I shit you not. It turns out that they emailed. Yes, please.
Honestly.
Bleep that.
not a bad attempt. There are a lot of politicians who have pretty straightforward contact addresses.
Yeah, that is true. Bill wrote me back. He said he would be happy to chat this morning.
Bill?
The Bill de Blasio featured in the Times of London. Yeah, Times of London Bill. He told me he'd be happy to chat. I sent him a list of questions, and he didn't write back. So either he didn't like me, or he's doing the most authentically de Blasio thing ever by being super late. So we'll find out.
I read articles where people reached out to him, and then he told them, meet me on the steps of City Hall, let's fight. And then they showed up, and then they emailed him, where were you?
Oh, my God.
I don't think there's another guy with my name, but I did meet a grocery store owner named Zohran on Steinway the other day. Shout outs to you.
Shout out that guy. I really wanted fake Bill to let me know whether you thought Curtis Sliwa was saying glazing too much. Like, is it funny? Is it try hard? What was your take?
Well, that was the first time I'd heard it, and I thought it was quite funny on that stage.
Yeah, it was a good moment. Okay, jokes aside, the Times of London is a Murdoch paper. The fact that this London-based newspaper was so desperate to write something shitty about you that they humiliated themselves by interviewing a fake Bill de Blasio, it suggests a level of interest in your campaign from Rupert Murdoch that strikes me as a bit ominous. Like, does that worry you at all? You guys feel ready for like 4 years of the New York tabloid treatment?
We are. We're ready for it. We've been living through it through the course of this campaign. And it's also an opportunity to make the case to each and every New Yorker as opposed to write people off. And what I mean by that is, we had this rally at Forest Hills. We had more than 10,000 people there. One of the attendees, I was stepping out onto the stage, and a member of our NYPD security detail pulled me aside. They were like, "Sir, I just want you to know in your line of sight, you will see someone with a MAGA hat. But we checked and they're here sincerely." And I walk out and there's a guy with a MAGA for Mamdani hat and a MAGA for Mamdani t-shirt. And I say this to you as an example of there will be many New Yorkers who read the Post as the way that they get their news. And I'm still looking to reach out to them as well. And it was actually the Post that has endorsed a piece of legislation that I introduced quite some time ago, though they probably won't recall. And that's what it means to have a desire to serve each and every New Yorker, not just the ones who already agree with you.
Yeah, and you seem to actually believe it when you say it, unlike the President of the United States. So this question is a bit of a journey, but bear with me. So the closing message from a bunch of your opponents is like, in some part, overt bigotry and Islamophobia. There's Cuomo laughing when a radio host like suggested you cheer at another 9/11. Adams and Curtis Sliwa said some vile things I'm just not going to repeat. At the same time, I'm watching Donald Trump blow up boats off the coast of Venezuela and kind of marry up the war on drugs with the war on terror in just the worst way possible. And for me, it's just like the latest reminder that this country has not moved on from the post 9/11 fear-based war on terror policies and politics. And you recently gave this remarkable speech where you addressed the Islamophobic attacks on you. And you said, quote, "The bigger question is whether we are willing to say goodbye to anti-Muslim sentiment that has grown so endemic in our city that when we hear it, we know not whether the words were spoken by a Republican or a Democrat. We know only that it was spoken in the language of politics in this city." Great speech. Everyone should watch it. It's up on YouTube. It's only 10 minutes long. And my question is, where do you think your campaign fits in that process, in that journey, this like decades long effort now to move past the post 9/11 politics of fear?
I hope that this campaign represents to New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs the possibility of being their full selves in the city that they call home. Because I spoke in that speech about how for a long time many Muslims were made to feel as if that safety could only be found in the shadows. And 2 days after I gave that speech, I went to Abyssinian Church, and Reverend Johnson gave a sermon in part in response to my speech, speaking about the allure of the shadows and the necessity of stepping out of those shadows. And he looked at me in the course of that speech and he told me that I was enough. And these are the words that I think many New Yorkers need to hear in understanding that there is no amount of shrinking themselves into a box that will ever be sufficient. And he quoted from the Bible and spoke about Esther. And when she said, "If I perish, I perish." If the cost of living up to the moment and what it is demanding of me is to lose myself, it is still worth doing so. And I continue to see in New Yorkers, many of them Muslim, but many of them also not, that this feeling of an ever narrowing definition of who gets to belong in this city is the antithesis of what makes so many so proud to be New Yorkers. And I think that there's this tendency to think in an era where we have a bully in the White House that the only way to take him on is to become the bully ourselves. It's similar to the articles that were written after the presidential election when we saw the rightward shift in New York, that in order to defeat the Republican Party, we may have to become the Republican Party. The truth is, in fact, we have to live up to what made so many people excited to be a part of the Democratic Party when we had an affirmative vision for the dignity of working class people. And I think that we have been far too willing to cast so many aside in the hopes of retaining power as opposed to building a coalition that can win power. That is what I hope that we are on the precipice of right now.
As you know, at the same time, your opponents in the New York Post again, like they're closing the campaign by going back to this focus on your views on Israel. Specifically, they're circulating this clip from 2023 where you said, quote, "We have to make clear that when the boot of the NYPD is on your neck, it has been laced by the IDF." Was that a reference to just like police training that happens often, including NYPD, going to Israel to get training from the IDF or the Israeli police or intelligence?
That's what that was a reference to. And I find that no matter how much we have, whether it be the Post or whether it be my opponents, looking to make the closing message of this race about anything other than the most pressing crisis in New Yorkers' lives, I found that New Yorkers, when I actually meet them in person across the 5 boroughs, it still comes back to the same thing that they told me more than a year ago. Cost of living, cost of living, cost of living. And I think in many ways we see that all Andrew Cuomo has is a vision of the past, as it was, as it should have been, and what we have actually is a vision of the future. And we're going to see the contrast of that only increase over the next 5 days.
When I watch your campaign, when I watch the great rally you did with AOC and Bernie on Sunday, and I see that energy, like it brings me back to 2007 when I was young and working for Barack Obama in Iowa, and like everything was ahead of us. It was all hope and excitement, and there was nothing we couldn't do. And then, of course, as you know, right, like candidates become, get elected, and you face inevitable setbacks, and sometimes your supporters can feel frustrated or demoralized. And I just wondered if you have thought about that or worried about, how much hope and excitement there is behind your campaign and how many young people are getting involved and feeling like your campaign is the avenue to get them back into politics and feel that excitement again, and how they can prepare themselves for how difficult it is to govern.
I think that with hope comes an immense responsibility to deliver on the promise of it. And I take very seriously that responsibility because, as you've said, this is a hope that for many New Yorkers has been the first time they've experienced it in the politics of their city. For others, it's the first time they've experienced it in years since the last time they actually engaged with politics. And the things that are written behind me, these cannot just be slogans. These have to be commitments that we deliver on. And it will be hard, it will be difficult, but I continue to believe that what we have seen in our politics in this city for far too long is an unwillingness to even try, an unwillingness to even dream of the life that people actually deserve. And I know that the coalition we've built has proved that impossible is nothing on many a different juncture over the course of this last year. I know that we can continue to do the same in actually governing this city, delivering on these promises, and showing New Yorkers that when they look for representation in their city hall, they will find it in the struggles that we focus on, because those will be the struggles that New Yorkers are experiencing each and every day.
Final question. What is more annoying, people whining on message boards about Arsenal's playing style or Bill Ackman's tweets? Tough one.
It's tough. It's tough. I'm gonna say it's got to be Arsenal, because at this point, Bill, I've come to expect the tweets. I kind of look forward to the tweets. It feels like you're trying to tweet as many as we would tax you, but you're spending even more than that. But when it comes to the Arsenal message boards, guys, we've been through the tough years. Come on.
Is Arteta getting fired if Arsenal doesn't win the Premier League?
Arteta in. I'm not even entertaining that hypothetical.
Okay. I love this.
This is what's wrong with the media. Every other question was fair, and then you went the wrong way.
Zohran Mamdani, thank you so much for doing the show. Again, that's Zohran for nyc.com/GOTV if you want to knock on some doors. Best of luck next week.
Thanks so much, man. Appreciate you guys.